I suppose, yeah, you can do that.
And then you'll have a quick flick at the screen.
I'm trying to look for my
We're live.
Good evening and welcome to the first Crafty Coders that we've run for quite a while now. It's a mixture of physical and virtual, so thank you everyone who's in the room. It's great to see you, and really I'm excited to announce that we've got both Sainsbury's presenting in the form of Andrew Morton and Adam Whistleby, and Microsoft in the form of Adam Jackson. So without further ado, we'll kick off. Then once we've gone through the Sainsbury's presentation, we'll have a small break. For those of you that are joined virtually, we'll have some food here. You should get yourself something at home, and then we'll join for the second half. So thank you very much, everyone, and welcome Andrew and Adam.
Hi everyone, hello. My name's Andrew Morton, I'm a tester with Sainsbury's. This is Adam Wesselby, and you are a product manager with Sainsbury's. I nearly forgot that part. What we were asked to do, we were asked to come along and we were asked to have a chat about, a little bit about Team Mercury and what we do at Mercury, but also about our journey and how we put together a hackathon for the first time, which was very interesting for both of us. So a little bit of background about Team Mercury. Adam and I are both members of Team Mercury, as are Tom and Ed sitting down there as well. And Mercury's initial vision was to try and innovate and to try and see what we could do to encourage more people to take up innovation time, both to be more creative and to enhance their learning. Now initially, prior to COVID, we had a fancy room that was going to be set up with future tech and everything, and obviously that vision's had to be readdressed, given that we don't use the offices, and actually the office where the room is no more. So now what we're looking at is we're looking at a sort of a kind of like a three-tiered approach to innovation. One is the personal innovation, what people do individually, what maybe they do within their own collective team. The second part is the sort of wider innovation piece, which sort of encompasses the hackathon bit, and you know, what types of hackathons, what we do, how we make them succeed. And then the third piece is the sort of future tech piece, was what can we grab that's out there that can make our business more effective. So that's kind of like what Team Mercury's sort of vision is and what we're trying to achieve. So we're sort of slipping in on the second part, which is the hackathon piece. So that's a very brief summary of how Adam and I got put into the hackathon piece. So without further ado, Adam?
Yep, so we've broke how we plan a hackathon into a couple of small pieces. So the first one is all about time and making sure that you plan for success with the hackathon, which is a lot harder than it sounds. So the first one is finding that perfect date in the diaries. So a large organisation like Sainsbury's Tech, trying to find that spot in the diary it's always been difficult. It's difficult trying to get a meeting in, let alone trying to organise a hackathon for up to 100, 150 people. So it's finding the perfect date in the future that gives us enough time to plan, but is also the perfect opportunity for everyone to attend. And to feed into that is who's got to be there. So diary management with the desired judges has always got to take precedence first. So figure out who we want to judge. And this comes before we know what we're going to hack, which always makes it slightly more complicated. But it is finding that spot, getting the judges in, tying that date down, and then we can send the space holder out to everybody else. Then the countdown to the event. So make sure that everyone stays engaged, make sure that everyone's aware of the date, have cleared their own diaries, and then for the rest of us to plan within Mercury of what we need to do by what stage so that we can make sure it's a success. And then, yeah, like I said, the placeholder, making sure that gets in there early so there's no clashes. What we have found quite regular is we'll plan it all, go to send the placeholder out, there's already a placeholder in there. So it's all about planning, timing, and making sure that we get it into the diaries as early as humanly possible.
Yeah, so I think that's probably the first thing we look at, most definitely, because I think what we've found is diary management is really, really important right at the offset before we even tell people that it's happening. I think secondly, when we're talking about countdown to the event, something I think the four of us learned from the first one we did, which was virtual, but then the second one when it was actually physical, was I think the key time here is giving yourself enough time to do this, because to throw a hackathon together and get people's engagement within a month is just not feasible. So you have to think it's got to be at least 2 to 3 months out in order to, you know, get everything done within the appropriate time and to engage people. So, yeah. So partnership, this was the next part. So it's who to team up with, because you have a number of options when you do these. You can do it internally. You can do it internally. You can say, right, okay, do you know what? We're just going to do it ourselves. We're going to get in together. We're going to do it. Sainsbury's will pay for it and we'll do it. However, the ones that are the most exciting is that if we can engage some of our partners. And we've had some very successful hackathons with some of our great partners. And the one just recently, the one that I guess we're taking a lot of this from, is with Microsoft, who are here with us today. So looking at the potential partners is important, because we want to see who would be good for this particular piece that we want to do. What involvement would they need to have, that kind of stuff. So we'll go to the next one. So this is one thing that we found that was quite interesting, is looking at mutual benefit, because we talked a lot when we were partnering up, is that what can you guys get out of this? What can we help you with? So there's not just a part of saying to your partner, give us lots of cash and come if you want, thanks very much. That's not what it's about. It's about trying to build those bridges, trying to see what we can do for them as well, to sort of bring the two people closer together. So we were looking at common ground here, because it was interesting, because when we were discussing the theme for the last hackathon, which was quite broad, we had to decide, was there some correlation with what maybe Microsoft had done in the past, and how could we use that and explain that and try and work together to get a bit of sort of synchronicity, which actually we came to. I think we had to sort of explain more in depth what we wanted to achieve, and they then said what they'd done in the past, and I think that just helped to merge everything together a little. Yeah, and this is obviously a big one, is what support do we want? Because, there are occasions where you do these things and you only want a little bit of input, or, do you want to come along and give a judge, or is there more to it than that? And particularly, I guess, which we'll come up to in a minute, if there's a location that's not a Sainsbury's location, what expertise are we looking for from our partner, to make it work for us? Adam?
And that will take us on to the next one. So location. Crucial one to decide quite early on. So do we host it in-house, or do we host it off-site? So where suits best for us, and where suits best for our partners that are joining us in this. So we've obviously we've had remote hackathons, we've had in-person ones, and it's finding that right location that not only fits with us and whoever we're in partnership with, but also what's going on at the time. So I don't think anyone's unaware that we've just been through a pandemic. So can we go off-site, or are we better using one of our own offices? And then it's always having that backup plan. So if we happen to go into another lockdown, or there's limitations at either office site, what can we do as a backup? And who will host? So again, that covers the location bit, but sometimes we can go complete third party. So we can go in partnership with Microsoft, with Red Hat, but we don't have to hold it at either of them offices. We could also go completely off-site into a mutual area between the two of us. So it's just making sure we understand who's hosting, who's doing what, and who's going to provide, I suppose, the background, making sure that the equipment's on site, making sure that we've got access to the Wi-Fi. Obviously, if it's in one of our own buildings, it's a lot easier for us. But there is always that limitation of what can we get and how do we get it set up.
Yeah.
And then it's the ease of access for the location. So it's okay, great idea, let's hold it in London. It's a main hub, we can get there. But when we look at Sainsbury's as a whole, our colleagues are split up all over the country. How do we get there? Is it feasible to get there? If we're staying for 2 days, can we stay over? Is the facilities there for that? So it's just making sure that everyone can get to that location, which is why we will be in the future, hopefully, be holding more of these hackathons at random places around the country. So it's not always at Coventry, or it's not always in London, because that will allow that accessibility for everyone to hopefully be able to attend these. And then any restrictions or limitations at the venue. So unfortunately, as we know, there are always capacity limitations. So it's just making sure that, I suppose, once we know where the location is and how many people can attend, how far and wide do we push this out across tech? So for us, we've got our family, so we can hold smaller hackathons, or do we go big bang, whole of tech, get everyone involved and see what we can solve? And that all feeds into not only the location, but who we're hosting this with, and also what the problem is. So if we're going for a whole of tech, we'd have to make sure that we have a broader subject rather than something more specific that our family are more orientated to try and challenge and solve. But we can touch on that on this next slide.
So this is always an interesting one for us as the theme, and it's always the one that could be the make or break of any hackathon, because you've got sort of two sides to this. If you're engaging with a partner, the partner wants to know that that theme is something that's energetic, that it's exciting, it's something they can get behind, something they understand. But I think one of the more important things is that the actual people that are going to take part in this hackathon, and I don't just mean the developers, I mean everybody else that gets involved within the team, they have to be excited by it. They got to look at the problem and go, do you know what, that is really interesting. So the theme is very important. I mean, when we were originally doing this, there was a little bit of a sort of, are we going to do this theme, are we going to do that theme, and there was a little bit of conflab, and what we got from a lot of people that were excited to come, but they were saying, do you know what, we're going to wait and find out what the theme is. And that is a genuine thing that I think we realised more the second time. We thought, my goodness, it's so important that the theme is there for everybody and they understand where it's going. So we want to know, is the theme going to be a problem to solve? Is it going to be something that is a particular business need that needs to be resolved? So if we have a problem in the business, can tech resolve that? Or are we letting creativity loose? Because there has been, I know Microsoft have done hackathons like this where they've just got a whole bunch of people together and says, go do what go have some fun and see what comes out. Yeah, and that can be really random, or it can be amazing. So it's whichever. So I think this one as well, this is about engaging the business, and I mean Sainsbury's particularly, because I think hackathons are a great thing. They engage engineers, they promote creativity, but they're also, we need to engage the business in such a way as to see that, can we provide value? Is the theme going to be, can we solve something that's going to provide value to the business? So, for example, with the theme that we do there, we were working very closely with Central Retail, because the particular theme that we had was one that was widespread throughout stores. So because of that, we got a lot of involvement, particularly from Andy Robinson, who actually joined us live on the event, which was fantastic, because that way then, when we say to them, we're going to do this and we're going to help you solve that, then they get involved too, and that just makes it a lot more valuable. So we want to also focus on real and current issues, because sometimes with hackathons we can look at something that might have been revisited before, or something maybe that's been attempted in the past and maybe only done maybe a little bit. What we like to do is we like to go in and we're looking to look at something that was really current, something that was in the minds of the people, both in store and potentially at Central Retail office as well, because that way we can engage them more if we're coming up to something that's sitting in the forefront of their minds at the moment. And this is one that we actually, I suppose we discovered towards closer towards the bit, and we should have done. This is a big learning one for us. Is actually creating a problem statement that is able to be interpreted by the teams, so they understand fully what needs to be done. So, for example, the challenge we had at the last hackathon was a very interesting challenge, but it was, if somebody has never worked in a store, understanding that particular challenge and what it means can be quite complicated. So putting together a problem statement and actually trying to define it in easier terms, we should have done that, and that's our learning for us. We should have done that, and we will do that from now on more in advance, so that the teams fully understand what they're getting into, what the problem is, and what they need to resolve.
And that takes us on to, how do we get this organised and how do we plan it? So this has always been an evolving area for us in Mercury. As we come across each challenge, we then write it down ready for the next one. Yeah. So stuff like the problem statements. So the first one is, how do we want the event to go? So There are a world of different things that we can do, but we tend to have either a 24-hour hackathon or we tend to split it up over a couple of days. And the decision on that is quite a big one because it does either encourage more people to take part or you tend to get more of the hardcore hackathon players, I'd say, across the business. I don't know.
Hackathon players.
that want to stay overnight in the office and crack on with writing code.
Yeah.
Or the multi-day events, which are always nice because then we get to spend a bit more time with the hosts or our partners that are in this, and we can make sure that we get some of that socialisation element into there as well, and it's not all about trying to solve the problem. Getting the word out, getting everyone excited. So we've talked about this earlier. We send out the placeholder, but it's how do we keep that energised? So we're talking about planning this 3, sometimes 4, 5, 6 months in advance. It's keeping it alive and in everyone's mind. So you can send a placeholder out for next June. People will forget about it after a day or so of accepting it. So once we start to get close to the event, how do we keep that energy going and everyone excited about going to the event and start thinking about the problem statements? And that's where, as we do more of these, we'll be able to get our timings right to make sure that we just keep feeding that small bits of information out to get everyone thinking about the problem in
essentially,
advance.
we've been generating teams for the next one coming up, and what we're getting from the teams is what's the theme, what's the theme, what's the theme, because they're really excited about getting involved and actually starting to think about the problem now, which is great.
Which takes us on to the next, which is, from my perspective, we can't over-communicate this. If we talk about it and everyone starts to get bored and turns off, at least we know that they're aware of it, because if they're turning off, they're fully engaged about it already, or we've done our job wrong.
Yeah.
But it's just keeping that communication chains going to not only the people that are going to be attending, but also the judges, and then whoever we're trying to solve the problem for, if we've got a problem area that we're trying to solve.
Yeah.
And then keeping in communication with our partners that are taking part in the hackathons with us, because a breakdown in communication will just ruin the whole event for us. Which takes us on to, he says,
That's the last one now.
the running order and then the judging criteria. So this is, break this down into 2 parts. How do we want the event to run? So if it is a 2-dayer, how do we split it up? How do we keep everyone engaged? At what point do we make sure everyone takes a break or goes home or socialises? And how do we just make sure that the event runs smoothly so that we're not here 48 hours later still trying to hack away at code? And then the judging criteria, which has always been a sticking point at some of the hackathons that we've had in the past. But making sure that the judges know what they're looking for from everyone that's taking part. Because it's not, I suppose the joys of a hackathon is you could get one great idea, you could get a dozen great ideas. On the day, the teams want to know whose idea was the best, but on the back of it, what can we take away and what can we use to drive the business forward? Which takes us on to after the event.
So after the event, now this is something that we're experiencing. This is our second time round after the event. The first time round we had a virtual hackathon in November, December last year, where we came up with some great ideas about feedback and how do we get feedback back from stores. And what Mercury did from that is obviously we looked out for volunteers, and we got Pete Ryan stepped forward and said, I'll lead this. We created Team Leopard, and Team Leopard ran with the winning idea, but not just with the winning idea, because they cherry-picked some of the ideas from some of the other bits. They put something together. Then when it came to the application, they teamed up with Team Thunderbird and actually got something out there, which I think is really, really brilliant, because the important thing about this is what do we do with these ideas? We can't just go for a jolly, produce something, and then not come back with a result. So the second time, for the one that we had in September, we're already looking now at 3 ideas that have been shortlisted from the 6 presentations. We're looking to see what we can do, and Adam and myself, Ed and Tom, will be looking to engage with Andy Robinson in the new year and say, look, we want to talk to you about these 3 ideas. This is what we think we can do for you. What do you think? And actually show that we can produce something, but we can follow it up too. And we can say, do you know what, let's try it. Let us look and see if we can solve this problem for you, and at least bring something to test for them to see. So we did that. Sorry, I just skipped ahead of it. So we did we did evaluate all the pros and cons for the, because we didn't just look at the winner. of the hackathons. We don't do that anymore. We looked at all of the ideas and we looked at them all with individual merit and individualised again, and then we looked at what we felt was the most viable to take forward. And again, practicality of taking it to MVP. We then created the shortlist with potential outcomes to present to the business, because this is the key part. Hackathons are fantastic, but we need to show value. And I think we've learned that from the first one, that we can actually bring something and actually create something that's usable. And hopefully from the one that we had in September, we'll be able to do the exact same thing, and for future ones as well. So the other part, which is also a bit of a challenge, but is to create the team, like we did with Team Leopard, to actually get this to some kind of MVP, some kind of piece that we can showcase. And the great thing about doing this is we can utilise this within innovation time. So it's not necessarily we're saying, well, we'll take £100,000 and we will create a team and we will pay them and we'll do this. No, we're not going to do that. We're going to ask for volunteers and say, hi, would you like to focus your innovation time by looking at this problem? And that way we can produce something that could be a really big winning idea for the business. And then, and only then, when we get that to that stage, we can then take it back to the business and say, can I show you this? Show them what they've done, and hopefully they're going to get excited about it, and then there's a potential then to take it forward then with some capital investment after that. And that's the sort of goal, to actually see, I guess the outcome from all of our hackathons is, what can we show as an outcome? What can we say, we've done this? This is out there because we put this together, you guys all took part, and we came up with this great idea. And I guess that's what it's all about. I think we didn't realise the importance of this. Before, we were kind of running with Team Leopard and it was kind of like a smaller idea. It's got bigger now with this last one, and it's probably going to get bigger again. But the outcome is key. I think that's it, isn't it? How are we doing? Yeah, sorry. So you could have asked questions all the way through, but you know, it's like you can't get a word in edgewise when Adam's talking. So does anybody want to ask any questions? Yo, lady in the front row.
Thanks. What is your biggest learning, like if you had to pick one, that you're taking forward into the next one?
That's dead easy for me. It's the problem statement. Because we made an error, and I'll stand up and say, Adam and I come from store. So when we talk about this problem that was in store, we go, yeah, wow, what a problem. Because we had to work with it on a regular basis for many years, and to try and manage the process within store. So our understanding on it was pretty high. But we made the mistake of assuming that our understanding was pretty high, so everybody else's will be pretty high too, and we were completely wrong. And what ended up happening is, actually on the day of the hackathon, we had numerous people who had worked in store going around going, let me explain this, because everybody came back and said, so what about this? Yeah, absolutely. And I think we made a mistake. We did. We should have sat down, we should have created problem statements, we should have put it in a format where there was clear examples, so that prior to the event, they were able to nail it straight off. And I think that, for me, definitely, I don't know about you, Adam.
Yeah, I think that one resonates with me, and it would definitely be, I suppose, the planning and making sure that the business experts are there. Because we pretty much, for the last one, relied on anyone that had store knowledge to be able to explain it. And like Andrew said, we've been through it, we lived it in store, but been out of store for 3 years. So keeping up with the current processes and the current problem.
Even to a small, because obviously I was part of that, and I think even like some quick tips or tricks could have been just to get some videos recorded from store, right? And then I know they're in a folder somewhere, you can share them in advance, and it's great learning to take forward for the next one, I think. Yeah. Especially with a business the size of ours and as complex as ours, it's a good one for next time.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah,
what about you guys? Because you're here too. Come on.
I think one of the learnings from the problem statement was to not have it too constrained. So the idea is that you do have a winner from your hackathon, but that you can also take forward multiple projects. Yeah. So the more projects you can take forward and experiment with, the more success you'll have.
Cool.
Edward? Here comes the boss.
Well, we're going to get around to Aaron. He's just sitting at the back there. We'll be there in a few seconds. No, it's okay. It's fine. So essentially, yeah. So that, I think for all of us, that is the big one, and I think that's why we're keen to get the theme fairly sharpish for the one where I know you are. I know you are. No pressure. But as soon as we get that, we can put that together. We can, and again, it's about explaining it to your partner as well. You're the person who's coming into partnership with you, because they need to understand what the problem is, and they need to understand what it is we're trying to resolve. So yeah, that's a pretty big one for us.
Thank you. Any other questions?
How do you drive new hackathon engagement? So people that don't know what a hackathon is about or what value it adds, and how do you get the message out to people, and how do you get people on board?
I can take this one if you want. So we have got a Confluence page where we try and track the hackathons, but people's views on Confluence are mixed, and obviously it's driving people to go and look at it. But I think it's just making sure we talk about it. So if we can get a success story and an MVP out there from a previous hackathon, it's a great story to talk about and to share. And when we're in our stand-ups and our retros and we're talking about our innovation time, it's making sure that hackathons aren't not part of that conversation, because it is part of your innovation and it is part of that time that we invest into the teams. So if you get a new colleague or a new team formed, it's making sure that they're aware that these are there and that we can use your innovation time to attend these events when they're on.
And to coin a phrase from Jodie, the hardcore hackers, right? They do it for you as well, because when you say hackathon, they go, yay, and they're there, and then they talk to the other people in their teams. They say, no, come along, this is really cool. So there is, it's kind of like a twofold thing. So we want to talk about it. We talk about it at the check-in. We try and engage people. I think initially when we did the one before, we tried to use the engineering managers and said, can you talk to your teams that stand up? I mean, we even went to some stand-ups and we said hi. We joined the stand-up just to say, would you like to come along?
There needs to be some myth busting as well, though,
Yeah.
right? So I remember some of the first hackathons that we did over in Walsbury, as an example. I was in product, and I just thought that you could only go to a hackathon if you were technical and you could write code.
Yeah.
And I think, was me and you had a conversation about the fact that I don't really know what value I'll add, and there is value, even if you're the person going around trying to help teams understand what shrink is, versus shrink versus waste, as an example, and that sort of stuff. There's so much more that a team is comprised of other than just people who know how. Obviously, it helps.
Yeah,
that's probably been one of my biggest missions, because coming to tech and being a tester, I still felt that I could add a lot of value within hackathons, and you had a lot of people that were a little jaded about it and saying, no, that's devs, that's developers. But now the way we set up the one in November and the way we set this one is we made it quite clear, 3 developers only and 3 non-developers. And the reason being is that the value that these people can add is really quite incredible, from UX to solution architecture to engineering managers to testers to PMs. The actual code itself. Did I miss somebody out?
No, I said heads of engineering.
Oh, sorry, heads of engineering. Sorry.
Question mark.
I was putting that under one envelope there.
That's what I was about to say.
But to actually have these people involved as well, because one of the most important things at a hackathon is to come up with a winning idea, and to have that sort of spread of knowledge, spread of information is highly valuable. So yeah, totally.
And I mean, quality of code is always going to be part of the judging criteria, but as always with everything, the way you present something at the end, you can sell an idea off a scrap of paper if you're good at presenting. So making sure you've got everyone in the room that can think about that.
And then if you've got UX in there, you're going to have great graphics, you're going to have great designs on. So there's lots of ways to build a team, and it's not about engineers. They're a big part. It's not about devs, sorry. Engineers and everybody else as well. Sorry.
And if not, just fetch the teas and coffees, which is what I did for the first time.
You did actually. For the first one, yeah.
Yeah, that was my job.
Does anybody else have any questions? It's not obligatory, but it's great to have questions. Yeah, go.
I've spoken to my team members who are less experienced,
and they feel very reluctant to join a hackathon because they wouldn't have a lot to offer. So what would you say to them?
Okay, this is something that happens quite a lot, and we say this, and I'll say this with all sincerity, right? If somebody contacts any member of Mercury and says, I would love to get involved with this, but I don't know what value I'll add, or I don't know if I could make a team myself, then talk to us. The last hackathon, what we did is we put people together and got people talking. So we had individuals coming who said, well, do you know what, although I'm UX, I'm not really sure what I should do, so do you know what, we've got a team for you, come here. And we make those introductions, and we'll link them up, yeah? And bear in mind, if you wanted to create a team, and perhaps your coding experience maybe wasn't as wide as, or maybe as experienced as maybe perhaps some of the others, it's not all about the code. The code's important, but it's also about the idea, and it's also about what you can present at the end. So I would absolutely say to people, reach out, talk to one of us, and we'll help.
I suppose the question is, what have you got to lose by coming along?
Yeah.
Because it's a day of innovation, but you'll still be learning or meeting new people and building them connections and them conversations. So
I see that benefit.
Yeah.
That's what I try to convince them. But
Yeah.
for them, there's more like there's a mental barrier because they're very shy. They're very inward looking.
Yeah. We had we videoed our 6 teams that presented at the last hackathon, and I have to tell you, there were some people in those teams that were mortified and didn't want to say a thing, and they'd even said before, do I have to present, do I have to do this, do I have to do that? Absolutely don't. You could just stand there and smile. That's all you have to do, because they'll always, that's why I was saying about how it's important to have that mix in the teams, because you can bring people in that can actually do that and help that part along, because it's all about the socialization, it's all about the creativity, and it's all about bringing an idea forward that we can use. So please reach out. Seriously, we will help.
I think there's also a reservation with, especially people that haven't attended or feel that they are still early in their careers or not as technical as other members, that a hackathon is a bit of a competition, and there is a competitive aspect to it. But it's going to sound really cheesy, but it's us versus the problem, not us versus each other.
Yes.
And I think there is a bit of a reservation in some people that I've had conversations with, saying they feel like they're going to get measured up against or compete against other members of the engineering community, and that's not what this is about.
No, definitely not.
And it's yes, there might be some people that will shine technically, but there's an opportunity to learn from them. But it's not a competition of individuals versus individuals.
No,
I
we've
think
seen.
Is a message that you need to land.
Yeah,
well.
I think you're absolutely right. We've seen categorically that we've had teams with the best coders. We've had teams with the most coders before we sort of tightened it up, not necessarily winning. Yeah, we've had teams that have won that have come up with an idea that was put together primarily, using UX with a bit of code but with a lot of dreams and a lot of presentation and a lot of that look what this could do if you give us the opportunity. So it's not just about that. And I think I'm only in tech 3 years, and I came to the first hackathon as a tester, and I had my other testers saying, "What are you going to that for? That's for engineers. That's for devs." And I'm going, no, I'm going. Let's see what this is about. And then I dragged you along, if you recall.
yeah,
And then we started
just to
talking.
translate.
Then we started talking to our peers. So at this last hackathon, we had 3 testers, whereas before we'd always had 1. We had a lot more PMs, we had a lot more UX, we had a lot more solution architect. And this is the great thing, we're starting to expand, and people are starting to realise that everybody can add value. And there are competitive people. Whoa, boy, oh boy, are there competitive people? But it's not about. yeah. There's one sitting over there as well. He's smiling. But there are competitive people. But absolutely. But yeah, you're right. It's not. Nobody's going to be judged on it.
Yeah.
Well, they are, but not in the way they think.
They're competitive to try and solve the problem. They're not
Yes.
comparing. It's not comparing
No.
each other. It's
No.
really, there is competitive nature, but
Yeah.
it's not a. Yeah.
I mean, the example would be that the winning team from the last hackathon, we ummed and ahed about whether that would be one of the 3 we'd put forward. And that's the genuine truth. So the winning team, we looked at it and we thought, do we do this? Because really, will it add value, and can we do it? And will the cost balance against all this? So even the winning team at that particular point, where the 4 judges said at that particular date, yeah, that's the best idea. we weren't going to put it forward. So it's not about the winning idea. It's about what we can work with and what's going to be the most viable option. I'm sure there was about 5 or 6 hands up there, possibly a minute ago. No, okay. Does anybody have anything else? Or genuinely, it's okay if you don't. But while Adam's still got a lot of nervous energy, best asking him now.
He doesn't get out very often, does he?
I don't. Well, if there's nothing else, then thank you very much. I enjoyed it tremendously, and we'll look forward to seeing you all at the next hackathon. Thank you. Okay, I believe we're having a quick break. Is that right, Ed?
Yep.
10 minutes?
We will be joining. We will be resuming the stream with the next presentation from Microsoft at 7:15.
Oh, we've got a bit of time then.
Yeah, we've got quite a bit of time.
Thank you very much.
There we go. We're back.
Are we happy? How long do I have? 35 minutes. Ages.
Yeah.
Oh, bags of time. Really depending on everyone to ask questions for this one.
The mic's a bit. Yeah, we need to get a proper mic at the moment, but it's a bit.
We are live. We are live.
Okay. Hoping people on the line can hear me. Someone want to give a thumbs up or virtual thumbs up or comment?
There we go. Just posted a message. Hopefully, someone, one of our lucky 3 viewers, responds. I'm just going to say, because I get the preview here, so it should. Let's just say we're live.
Okay. You all sitting comfortably. Shall I begin? Hi everyone. So my name's Adam Jackson. I work at Microsoft. I'm the Azure Developer Audience Lead. So I actually work in the Microsoft Marketing Department. So I'm not actually, shock horror, not actually a developer. So all this bit about you not having to have a developer in your hackathons really resonated with me personally. I have worked at Microsoft for around 10 years now. And I fell into working with developers. It wasn't necessarily deliberate. I actually studied human resource management for my degree, and I was a program manager in various parts of Microsoft, and then I was told that there was an exciting opportunity to work on a product by the name of Windows Phone, which for anyone with memories of Windows Phone, that went down really well. I worked on the apps team for Windows Phone, and we had 2 teams. We had one team that paid people to build an app for the platform, and then had the other team which didn't pay people to build an app for the platform, and I was on that second team working at breadth to try and get as many developers as possible to build apps for the phone. And you know what, we actually did build a lot of apps in the UK, and I'm reasonably proud of that considering I had 0 resources. But one of the key ways that we got those apps published to the phone platform was by organising hackathons. So my first taste of hackathons was in about 2014, and since then, I've done a few different roles. You can see different pictures from my time here. There's one from Future Decoded, and I look a lot thinner there. In fact, I'm a lot thinner on almost all of the pictures. Microsoft Ignite the Tour, Microsoft Reactor, which is one of our event places for developers. And I think this picture here with the Microsoft logo in the background, this is at Microsoft Ignite in Orlando, and that was the last big global event that I did. And then this one here is from Prague, and that's the last actual Microsoft event that I did in person. We're still fully online at the moment, but we are hoping to be back in person very soon. So I've done work with communities, I've done work with Microsoft partners. I had a little stint working for Microsoft Global team, the Microsoft Corporation, and then in March this year I came back to work for Microsoft UK in the marketing team. And I like to think of myself as a bit of an anti-marketing marketeer. I don't believe that marketeers have a place in necessarily talking to developers. My job is to amplify the voice of other developers and get that word out to the rest of the community. So, I thought it might make sense before I talk about hackathons to explain why Microsoft loves developers. And the first one is our developer heritage. And this is good and bad. There's been rough and smooth along the journey. But what you can see in terms of the way that Microsoft's worked across the years is that we've always depended on our relationship with developers, whether that's been developers actually working for us, developers building third-party integrations for us, or indeed in our customers as well. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. We love our passionate technical communities, so this community is obviously one of the ones that we've worked with for a little while. We also have a lot of Microsoft user groups, Azure user groups, Microsoft 365 user groups, you name it, all across the UK. And we do our best to get around them and support them and make the right connections into Microsoft. But actually, all of those communities are autonomous. So if you see an Azure user group, they're not necessarily Microsoft controlled. They get to say what they want, which sometimes is a good thing. as well. It's sometimes good not to have too much control of these things. There's definitely a headache that I don't have to deal with if someone says the wrong thing or something slightly off message. We also work with technical communities that are non-Microsoft, so JavaScript, Python communities, Java, and of course our .NET community, which is Microsoft affiliated. Third reason we love developers is because they power our customers. So obviously Sainsbury's is a very important customer of Microsoft. We work with tens of thousands of customers in the UK, big and small. Did you know that there are 1.35 million developers in the UK, of which 1.12 are professional developers doing some sort of development work? They might not all actually describe themselves as developer, so actually many people could say I'm an engineer or a data scientist, but we, for the simplicity of the term, say developers. But just so you know, if you're a UX or data scientist or tester or an IT professional, we absolutely love you too as well. Developers, in terms of powering our customers, the reason I say they power our customers, 72% of developers have some sort of decision-making ability inside their organisation. Now, obviously, the smaller you get, the more power you have as an individual, but actually what we shouldn't underestimate is the collective power of developers to make decisions. So when you start experimenting with a new technology or you build something at a hackathon, you make decisions about how you're going to build that. You decide on the languages and frameworks, you decide what platform that's built on a lot of the time. And so it's really important for Microsoft to be working with people early on in the journey as well as late on. I'm going to jump through this one. And then, just to say, we, as an organisation, we do welcome all developers. So we support all the major languages and frameworks. I already mentioned them: Java, Python, JavaScript, .NET. We also support Go, Rust, a few others as well. We support people to use the tools and platforms that they want. So, if people are using AWS or Google, but they're using Visual Studio or GitHub, then that's still really great for us. We love people using our platforms. VS Code, for example, is the top platform for JavaScript developers, and we're really, really proud of that. And the final thing before I jump into hackathons is just to tell you about one of the biggest investments that my team has been working on in recent years is learning. So we built a new platform called Microsoft Learn, which is hands-on learning for devs. So that's my little advertising spiel for today. Now we're going to go into the hackathons section. So as I mentioned, I've been involved with hackathons in one way or another since 2014, but they might be a bit different from maybe hackathons that you've experienced, or there might be some crossover. So some of this is from my perspective. I'd love to hear your experiences as well, whether that's at the end or whether you want to raise your hand and interrupt right now. But these are the types of hackathons that I see on a regular basis from my perspective, and it's not an exhaustive list. So I see community hackathons where people are going, similar to actually what we were talking about before, where everyone turns up and hacks for 24 or 48 hours, shows off their project at the end and wins a prize. So we are involved with a lot of those as Microsoft. We also have our own internal hackathons. We have something called Hack Week, which just happened recently. And we also we do have parameters and themes these days. There's actually a multiple choice, so it's not just one theme, but we do try and guide people. And a lot of efforts recently are around social good, particularly. We do hacks with our customers and partners to help them accelerate their projects. So whether that's the recent interaction that we had with Sainsbury's, or whether that's our Microsoft partner team working with software companies to help them accelerate their new product. Or whether that's whether we have people in to our buildings as well, which hopefully we'll be able to do very soon. And then the final one is a challenge-based hackathons. This is where you don't bring a project at all. You actually get set a bunch of challenges and see how quickly you can actually jump through those challenges and complete. And whether you win a prize or whether you've just got the honour of completing the challenges at the end depends on the sort of challenge that we've set. I just wanted to dive into these a bit more. I've had some really good experiences, and I've got some pictures on screen, so I hope everyone can see them. It might be a bit of squinting actually if you're sitting at the back. But a lot of the public hackathons I've taken part in have been organised actually by the community and for the community. So the first one, which is at the top of the screen, is a student hackathon. So this is the one that we took part in at Cambridge University, and they actually invited students from all over the UK to take part in that hackathon. So we turned up as a Microsoft team. We brought a sort of variety of technical people, because you never know exactly what problem is going to be thrown at you on the day. And we also set a challenge there. So we said if people use at least one Microsoft technology in their hack project, then they could enter to win a prize. And then we also invited all of the finalists from that hackathon to take part in a competition that we call Microsoft Imagine Cup, which is a global challenge where you can actually win a cash prize and funding, and you get to meet Satya Nadella, our CEO, as well. So that was really good fun, and that picture is from, I think, from January 2020. So again, sort of one of the last ones that we did. The second one, social good. So bottom left, this is actually a picture from Facebook in, I think, 2016, back when they were a really top-notch employer that everyone wanted to work for, and everyone was falling over themselves to work there. We had a really great time at Facebook. It was this was actually an LGBT community hack that I was one of the judges for, and it was actually people building products over 24 hours that would actually help the LGBT community. So it's great fun. We did have prizes for that as well. Really good party atmosphere over the weekend. And like the student one at the top, this was an overnight hackathon. And then in the bottom right, we have a picture, and I think I've got a better one on the next slide, so bear with me, from a community that we work with called Girls into Coding. And these are actually 9 to 11-year-old girls, so you probably won't be surprised to hear that that wasn't a 24-hour hackathon and we didn't have booze on tap. But we did have a bunch of IoT devices, brought the community together. We hosted them in our office and did all the food. And actually the person that runs that community is, she's now 13, she's called Avi, and she's been featured on the BBC for being really inspirational in tech. So this was this was an inspirational hackathon for me, where the kids worked together to build a project. They learned about IoT, they learned about tech, but also it's for a really good social cause to help people actually get more hands-on and think about, well, maybe technology is the right thing for me in the future. And that's definitely really important for us with the shortage of tech workers across the UK. We need to inspire the next generation. So I've just got a few more pictures on this slide. The first one is, top left is from Facebook, just to people hacking away. It's probably quite a familiar scene. By the way, Facebook was amazing for their food and drink. Was like the best that I've ever had at a hackathon, so I was like seriously impressed. Bottom centre is Girls into Coding, so you can see some of the girls that took part. There's a little raccoon that they're all holding, which is our Microsoft Azure mascot, and that's Avi right in the middle there. I think she was actually 11 when that picture was taken, so she's got a bit older now, and we did a video with her recently as well that she's been able to share with the community about some of the work that she's done. And then just another picture of the student hack that we did. I had too many pictures, I couldn't choose, that's why we've got the second page. Okay, so this is probably going to be a little bit more familiar to what some of you have done with a hackathon before, and this is Microsoft's internal hackathon week. So we do 1 week every year. I think we've done it since 2013 or 2014, and every year it gets bigger. It's a global event, and we give engineering teams time out on that week, so they're encouraged to stop. All the sprints are supposed to finish. People, except on mission critical projects, people are given the time out to work on hackathon. It very much has been, it's getting a bit more wider Microsoft now. It was very much just an engineering team thing, and I think some of the technical sales people would often take part as well. But recently we've made a lot more efforts to actually bring people in that are non-technical into this week as well. So we're not just talking about people that are artists and PMs. We're also talking about people that are maybe like myself, that are a marketing manager for their day job, and what can they bring to a particular project. Every year there's different themes. You can pick from I think 5 different themes each year. They're all judged. There are prizes that are won. I think a lot of taking part in hackathon is about honour. but also we get a lot out of it from a product perspective. And the product that always sticks with me is, does anyone know what this, the middle, the sort of centre right picture, does anyone know what it is?
Is that an accessibility control from Xbox?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, well done. So I've got some hoodies down here, so pick up a hoodie if you answer a question correctly. Or so the accessible controller was something that people got together, thought about how could we take the classic Xbox controller, deconstruct it, and make it work with all these third-party accessories that are made for people that have accessibility needs. And as you can see, that turned into a real project that's supported by the company, and I think this is probably one of the most important hardware products that we've actually made in recent years. And it's one of the reasons, having employees that are really passionate about stuff like this has meant that we're actually so much better connected with people that will use this as well. So we had, not only did we have people that were just passionate about hardware, but we also had people that that work inside Microsoft that actually have a need to use this sort of device as well. And you can see some of the pictures from, these are in-person pictures actually along the bottom of the screen. And I'm sorry if they're a bit small for people to see, but last year we did a hybrid format. Last year we did an online-only format for the Hackathon week. This year we went back to hybrid, so some people were back in the offices doing hack. But actually, online is a big advantage for this because it does bring people together. And if you are, an engineer that's, we hire a lot of people that are not office-based at all. So this is a great opportunity for people to actually network inside the company, and for people that don't work in a product role to get a bit more hands-on with what working on a product team could actually mean. All right, next sort of hackathon that I work with quite a bit is something we call a Partner Solution Accelerator hack. So this is probably, again, going to be a little bit familiar. We work with a lot of Microsoft partners, actually 25,000 different organisations of Microsoft partners just in the UK. Many of them are ISVs, or independent software vendors, software companies, and they we work with them in various ways, but they all have a product. And one of the things we do with them is we bring them together. Actually, we used to do up to 18 companies in the Microsoft Reactor because we had space for 18 tables for 6 people, so we get 108 people into that building. Actually, since they've been online, we can fit way more onto a Microsoft Teams call. I think 35 is the limit because you run out of channels after a while. But what we do with those, and this is a really good point from the previous talk, is we did a couple of those where they were a bit of a free for all, and we sort of said, oh, just bring your product and we'll get some technical people together and we'll try and work on it. And it didn't really work, if I'm honest with you. It did for some partners, but others, they had very specific bugs that we just couldn't service on the day. So what we do now is we pick a topic. So we say we're going to do something around cloud native. So we're going to bring along people that are specialists in serverless and Kubernetes to the event from the Microsoft side to support, or we're going to do an AI hack. So we'll bring some data scientists and we'll bring some AI specialists along, and we'll work on specific features. And so you still bring your own project and work on it for 3 days, but we're going to be a bit more specific about what we're actually going to be able to do in these times. And you still get people that manage to do some other things as well, but it helps it be a bit more focused. And we also, one of the things we also do, they're 3 days long. They're not the sort of, it's not 72 hours continuous, it's 3 days, 9 till 5. Just in order to keep people's attention span up, we have a lot of lightning talks. So we do have a Microsoft keynote, and we have a couple of Microsoft people always put talks forward. But we ask all of the partners that we work with to also do a talk about what they're building, if they're comfortable sharing, because sometimes people aren't. We don't want to put people on the spot. Or people even do talks on really interesting things that they found out that might not even be related to their project, but just in the aim of helping everyone else. We get lots of positive feedback. The thing that always sticks with me is we had someone say our team did 3 months of work in 3 days, and that's, they were building it. They knew exactly what they needed to do, but they couldn't get to it. And by having that access to people, to technical coaches, really helped them. And this theme of coaches is actually one that's sort of rolls over to the final type of hack that I'm going to talk about, which is challenge-based hacks. And so I'm going to talk to you about a couple of formats that we do. These are hacks where we actually the focus is on learning. And this is this is maybe a bit of a distinction, is all of you, I'm sure that you've attended hacks wanting to build something. But at Microsoft, we also think about doing a hack so that you can learn something as well. And if you get to do both, that's even better. Open hacks and Azure Adventure Days are very specifically focused on learning. So you don't take something home with you. You actually get set a bunch of challenges. So Azure Adventure Day is 1 day, Open Hack is 3 days. I'll tell you a little bit more about Open Hack. But the objective is that knowledge, the skills and confidence. Why do we care about learning? Because that really helps us accelerate our customers' projects. So we talk about developer velocity a lot and how we can make developers' lives easier. But also skills are a key thing for us, especially if it's people are new to our platform or they're moving over from another platform or using a new technology that they've never used before. There's a wonderful diagram that I don't have in here called I think it's called the pit of despair or something like that. It shows people going from their wonderful, comfortable on-premise service and then suddenly migrating over to the cloud and how they don't know how to do anything, and how do we get rid of that pit and actually go straight up to the exponential growth of productivity. Anyway, open hacks. So these are it says developer focused, but actually this isn't my slide, this is from the Open Hack standard slides. I'm going to argue with this as well. It says developer focused engagement. Actually, not always true. So we have a DevOps open hack, which I'll talk through in a second. Actually, on a DevOps open hack, you need IT professionals, you need DevOps specialists, you need developers, you need program managers, you need a mixture of different people to actually get through the challenges. If you just have developers all on one team, actually it slows you down. You actually need that mixture. Like you have in the real world, you need the mixture of people. As it says, in person or online, currently all online, I'm sorry to say, but I'm pushing really hard to get in person in the next few months, hopefully. These are also 3-day events, and so challenge-based, roughly 5 people in each team, sort of 4 to 7 on average, try and get 5. And each team has a coach, and that's why I said we found that coaches work really well on our other hackathon types. It's really good to have an experienced person that can actually help mentor people through, not give them the answers, but actually just help point them in the right direction. And they're immersive, and actually the bottom one's a really interesting one for us, is actually helps us build our products out when we see how people interact with our services. So we get great feedback, which helps us as an organisation. Again, here's a real life open hack in the real world. They're all online at the moment. Primarily technical. Great opportunity for people to network and actually meet Microsoft people as well. So I said that we'd have topics, and I know this is going to be a bit of an eye chart, but we have 8 different types of hack. They all have their own curriculum. They've all been put together with real customer problems. The most popular hack topics we do are containers, DevOps, and serverless. And we've done all 3, I think, in the last few months. Had various customers joining us for those. Let's take the DevOps open hack as an example. Teams get to choose what platform they want to work with. Typically they'll choose Azure DevOps or GitHub for their journey, and then there are 9 different challenges, and the challenges are all things that real customers have had happen to them. So the objective is you navigate through the challenge, you hit some problems, it doesn't work the first time, because we want you to learn where you could also hit issues. And actually have the confidence to do it in real life. And this is amazing for our customers, and increasing the productivity of the developer teams. It's great for us as Microsoft because people adopt our products better. So there's a mutual benefit in doing these. And we also, all the time, we have new services coming out. So we're bringing out new hacks such as well-architected solutions, which is actually to support people with making sure their architecture is absolutely top-notch, and others such as ML and data science, which is actually returning. Lots and lots of customers. I'm not going to go through the quotes in a lot of detail. I'm going to flash up one customer we worked with, which was Admiral. and they've done so many open hacks with us. I think they had a dedicated open hack just for them, just because they wanted so many people. So we didn't invite any other customers. We just did it for them on containers, and they liked it so much that they actually paid our training provider to run another one. So they found it really beneficial, and they also always turn up whenever I offer a new open hack out. So they're seeing the benefit massively in terms of their adoption of services and getting the best out of the developers, having highly skilled developers that really appreciate the investment that the company makes and their time. So here's some pictures, unfortunately all online from the last couple of years. There was one, I don't think I've actually got the slide, where our CEO turned up, and I think it might have well been Admiral that he turned up to, so I think that was a bit of a surprise for everyone, probably for the technical people from Microsoft, to be honest, as much as the attendees, but they're still very interactive, and we get really good reviews back from everyone from attending these. So I think we covered in the first presentation some of the steps in terms of planning a hackathon, and I also had a bit of thought about this, and it probably comes from a different angle. I always think, what outcomes do you want is the first thing, and I think when you're doing hacks like here at Sainsbury's, that that you can be really clear on the business problems that exist, and if you've actually worked in a shop and you've seen the business problems, you're going to be even more conscious of what they are. But there's something I always ask our customers, and I also ask our internal team when they say, I want a customer to run a hack, or I want to work with a customer on a hack, or I think we should go to this hack. Well, what outcomes do we want? The big two for me are the customer getting something out of it, first of all, whether that's a product, whether that's increased confidence, and then the second one is skills. And for me, skills is it's not an end point. It's not like, right, you've just been to the DevOps Open Hack, so you know everything about DevOps. It's absolutely not that. That's just one thing in a whole menu of things that we want to do with our customers. And the same if we're attending a hack where people are building a project. We know it doesn't stop when they get to the end of that hack, and we don't want it to stop when they get to the end of that hack. We want to be able to take forward as many projects as we can. So when we did our Microsoft Hack Week, we have winners there, but a lot of teams actually take those products forward, and many of them are small things that you'd probably never notice as an external user, but some of them become really big, like the adaptive controller. And I think there was another one that I use all the time, which is really, I find really handy, which is an app called Find Time, which helps schedule a meeting with people. So small things, but big impact. Second one is, how long will your hack be? So I think we already covered this. 24 hours, 48 hours. Is it going to be 3 days? Is it going to be 1 day? I've got to be honest, talking about open hacks just then, asking people to give up their work for 3 days is really hard. It's really difficult for us to do. We can't always ask people to say send 50 of your developers out to Microsoft for 3 days. That's challenging, and so we're seeing more demand for 1 day hackathons or different experiences, or sometimes our customers will just send 5 people and multiple customers will be there as well. So that's also an important consideration for us. And then if you're organising a hack, well, we covered things like location being a huge one, but what resources do you need as well? Facilities. I know it sounds really trivial, but are you going to book a venue? Is it going to be an external venue? How are you going to pay for it? Is it going to be hybrid? Is there going to be an online environment? What do you need to set up? If it's an overnight hack, do you need special security measures? And all of that requires budget. So what sort of budget do you require? So you can run very cheap hackathons, but they can also become hugely, hugely expensive if you're not careful. There's some passion points for me. Catering. This is this is my baby at events, is catering. It's probably what I'm most well known for inside Microsoft, is my luxurious menus at events. But I'm quite savvy. I work out the right suppliers and negotiate with them, and get really good food. Good food is an incentive. That doesn't mean it all has to be leaves. I've put on healthy choices on there. It's a mixture. It's having the choice to be able to have a healthy snack, having pizza, having some sweet treats as well. Don't have to massively push the boat out. You can see that I went to, I shouldn't have put this picture on, it's not Sainsbury's mini bites, but go to Sainsbury's and buy those little pots that are sort of like 2 for £4, and they work really well for events. But also make sure you've got plenty of drinks as well, as we have at this particular event. Non-alcoholic beverages really, really important as well, just to be inclusive. I think it's a stereotype, but it might be true. I think developers eat a bit more than the average person, so I certainly do. So maybe like just over cater a bit. That's what I always do for my events. On the other hand, if you're online, the best thing to do is make sure you set up your environment in advance and think about your team structure. So one of the things that we did early on when we moved things online is we almost treated it like a real hack. And we're like, yeah, we'll just get you into teams. And no, that doesn't really work. Absolute chaos. So, think about if you're using, whether you're using something like Microsoft Teams or you're using another popular, video conferencing solution. Think about, well, how will you have breakout rooms that really work for everyone, and who will go to what, and when will they be called back, and when will you do lightning talks, and how will people be in and out and find where they're supposed to be. Make sure you build in regular breaks. Attention span is shorter online than it is in person. So I found it really handy to just think about how you can, get people up, just walking around a bit. And sometimes you can do that almost as a bit of an activity. So, I don't know, do hack yoga or something like that. You can have someone that's really passionate about yoga. Think about how you can still engage people. So I've got swag here tonight. Sorry for anyone that's joining online. But if you're doing an online hack, you can send things out to people, whether that's prizes or whether that's a T-shirt for everyone. And then just think about the timings for online as well. So it may not be that people want to do 48 hours as a full online thing. I think probably not. You might want more bite size. In fact, you may even want to do a whole week-long hackathon where you've got people checking in at regular interval, a bit like we do with Hack Week at Microsoft. Prizes. So, depends on the audience. I've seen everything at hackathons, every sort of prize, whether that's been like, food, there's a prize, the drones, I think, are shown in this picture. We often do stuff like a Microsoft Surface or some Surface headphones at our events. And then also swag is a really good incentive as well. I've put on there Think Sustainable, and everyone keeps saying, does that mean you're going to have like cardboard pens and stuff like that? Well, it doesn't actually. In my case, I actually went for more expensive swag that I thought would be appreciated and that people wouldn't throw out. So stickers are always great, but if you're going to buy swag, please don't buy the cheapest thing that you can possibly do, because it'll just go in the bin. I had someone begging me to order like branded headphones the other day, and I was like, no, unless they're like literally branded Bose, people won't use them and they just won't appreciate it, and then that goes into waste, and that's bad for the environment. So think about things that people will love. I love this hoodie, it's really comfortable, and don't go for the cheapest fitting thing. And then if you're online, you can think about vouchers, especially if you've got people that are far apart as well. So finally, after your hackathon, and this is like the biggest learning for me, is what next? For us, when people are learning something, it's, we're making sure that they, we ask them, well, how can we work with you next? What's the next project? For yourselves, especially if the folks working on Sainsbury's hackathons, the question is, what will you do with your project next? Will it get picked up? Can it be incorporated? Could bits that you've learned on the journey be used for other projects as well? Then just think about what next. So what hacks next? This was already mentioned at the start. Get that demand, get the excitement for whatever follows. And if you do all of these things, all of the tips that Sainsbury's have given, all the tips that I've given, hopefully you'll have a really successful hack. So with that, I am going to turn over for any questions. Yes?
Do you think online hacks are here to stay, so COVID or no COVID?
Yeah, really great question. So I think they are here to stay, at least in some formats. I think the learning hacks that we do, the open hacks, we do see people that enjoy those being online because they couldn't otherwise come to one. So previously they were very much London, Reading. Sometimes we would get out somewhere else. It was actually hard for people across the UK, especially if they couldn't, especially if they were self-funding their travel. London's so expensive. I think they will stay. I also think that they need to come back in person as well. I think that you probably get more benefit from an in-person one. Honestly, I'm not here to say that online is better. I don't think it is. I think that it's good for some people where it can work out. What I don't think works particularly well is a hybrid hackathon where some people are in the room and some people are online. I'm not convinced. I've not seen anyone show me a format that can work, and I'm happy for someone to challenge me and say no. I think that for us at Microsoft, we'll try and do both. So Open Hack's definitely a mixture.
You spoke earlier on about the developer technical communities that you have.
Yeah.
I'd be interested to hear how you get them involved in that and how you keep them engaged. Because I suppose getting people to do something that's extra to their work and actually get involved in these communities, how do you drive that, or how do you encourage that?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you mentioned communication. I think it is that. It's explaining the benefits. And we sometimes struggle even within our customers to explain the value of taking 3 days out of work. So it's not just a communities piece. It's customers too. It's people we work with every day. So I think having the buy-in, that my colleague Steph looks after our community programs, all of our user groups and meter groups. She has to have a really warm relationship with them. We also make sure that we have a technical relationship, so we try and make sure there's a Microsoft technical person attached to all the groups that we want to work with, so that people have got the regular connection. Because if I just turn up once to let's say Coventry Python user group, I don't know if that even exists, but hello if it does, and I say, come along to one of our hackathons, people are probably going to be like, why? Whereas if they've had a wonderful, passionate Microsoft employee that that really cares about Python, really cares about the community, and they've explained the benefits back to them, then they'll we'll get the buy-in. So I think having the technical connection. That's why I often say I'm marketing, but I'm actually not always the best person to directly communicate with developers. It's actually getting a technical person to do that.
Please.
Yeah.
I just have 2 questions. The first one, have you ever had Satya coming to one of the hackathons with you?
So he did. He turned up to, I think it was the Admiral hackathon that we did. He turned up because I think Admiral was the customer where they'd done a few hackathons with us, and then they'd said they wanted to do more, and I think we'd said, we've got too many planned, we can't do one, and so they actually paid for our training provider to do one for them. And I think he actually heard about that, and they were always showing up as like a customer that had engaged really well. So he showed up to them as a surprise, and he's actually got a quotation on one of the slides. Actually has a mention from him. So yes, and he also at the internal hacks he shows up to those, and then the student thing that I talked about right at the start. He if you win that competition, you get mentoring with Satya. So he's an engineer. I think it's really important for a technical company to be run by a technical person. I know that I know that Apple managed to do it with a non-technical person, but you can see the difference in Microsoft, the Microsoft of today, led by someone that's actually a developer himself, to the Microsoft of 6 or 7 years ago.
Do you believe that in a way drives more interest towards people participating in this type of
Yeah, definitely, and I think it's also seeing, another thing that I think drives interest is seeing diversity represented as well. So, for us to have a non-American CEO was very important as well. And I think I saw a tweet the other day about, from India, about how many Indian CEOs there are now, and no wonder everyone in India wants to be a developer, because they see inspiring Indians successful are all around the world. So I think another thing for me in hackathons is there's not enough women taking part. So if you see technical women taking part in a hackathon, that's inspiring for other women, and that builds a bit more confidence. And then the last thing that I think can attract interest is seeing people that aren't in the classic developer role taking part as well. So seeing the UX, the marketing managers, or the people that are just hobbyists on site taking part. Yeah.
Just one final last question.
Yeah.
No, I have a sweater, please.
Yeah, yes, yeah, absolutely. You've asked loads of questions, so yeah.
I just wanted to ask you, you're clearly incredibly passionate about your food, and I love that part.
Yeah.
My favourite slide. I'm curious, how do you bring that sort of social gathering around food to an online event? Have you actually managed to sort of do something that can create that kind of environment. I'm not saying send everybody a cup by post.
We've tried.
Yeah,
we've tried,
I'm
but
curious.
I think there's a different dynamic, and I think that when people are at home, there's just other distractions going on. The kids have just come in, and you fancy a bite to eat and stuff like that, and you go to wander off, so you naturally drift away from that. So I think we've tried a few things like Eat Together, hasn't really stuck for us. Whereas a hackathon, I almost sometimes think people get as much done when they're stood up and they're having something to eat and they get to talking to one of the other tables than they necessarily do sitting down. To be honest with you, so I don't want to go on and on about food all the time, but that is food and drink, and that's why in the Microsoft venue that we have in London for developers, we've got a massive kitchen, because people are always in the kitchen at parties, and this big sort of seating area that's not meant to be used for events or hackathons, where it's a social area and there's sofas and stuff like that, because that's those side conversations. Just like here in an office, you have those corridor conversations that spark ideas as well.
I actually do have one more unless anybody's jumping in. No. You were talking about the global hack.
Yeah.
I was talking to one of your colleagues about that. He told me all about that at the last hackathon. I was absolutely fascinated by how it operated. One of the things he didn't mention, it was interesting, you brought up the fact that you had all the slides from the different countries and everybody involved. How did you go about judging an event like that, or didn't you? And it was, because I'm just curious, how did you, was there an overall winner, or was it a regional thing?
There's category win. Actually it's a bit federated, to be honest with you. So yes, some of the sites actually choose the winner. So for example, we've got London Development Centre, some other countries have a development centre, Dublin has one. They get to choose their own local winners.
Right.
Then there's also category prizes as well. I don't think, I'm going to be corrected on this by Sam, I don't think there's an overall winner, is there? I think there's just category winners, and the categories are things like save the world and promote equality, and then there's some more technical categories as well. So I think everyone has a good chance, and the judging is done through a platform we built especially to do that. So there's a lot of peer voting on there, and then trying to explain how it works. It's quite structured, and then eventually you get to a stage where there's people scrutinising what it is and what you've done, and there's multiple stages. We don't announce the winner right away at the end of the week either. We take a bit of time to think about it.
So you get everybody together again, or do you just...
There's events and announcements that follow, and I think if you're in an engineering team specifically, you're a bit more bought into that than I see like the emails coming in over time. I'm going to put my hand up and say it's one thing that I need to get more involved in is our internal hackathons. It's always a reminder for me talking about it.
Thank you. Sorry.
Any others?
The only thing I was about, thank you very much for talking. You talked about the student element.
Yeah.
One of the things that we find is how do you drive that diversity and encourage gender and other diversity into the IT career? Have you ever been able to use hackathons as a way of encouraging people to come into there by partnering them with other developers?
So, not necessarily through that specific. So that was Hack Cambridge, and they have their own criteria. And I do believe that they work very hard to get representative teams. And I certainly actually saw quite a lot of diversity compared to what I'd expect. And it's still probably 80-20 in all honesty, but it's certainly better than I've seen in some other hackathons. What we do in student is we actually have, so we've got a lot of apprentices and graduates at Microsoft and interns. We've actually got a team called TechHer, which is our one of our external women's initiatives, and we recently created TechHer Student in the UK, and so they're the people that try and run make sure we're running specific hackathons for women, make sure that when we've got our general events that women are very well represented, make sure we've got a great repository of technical speakers who are women as well. So I think it's lots of little things will make the difference, but it's also thinking beyond gender as well, thinking about, I don't think, for example in Microsoft, that we do enough work on race at the moment, and you can see that in the makeup of the organisation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks very much. No, thank you. Thanks everyone for coming along. It's been great to get together physically and virtually with some people. and we'll keep you posted as to when the next Crafty Coders is and what the topics will be. Thank you very much.